What if I told you that the man who now leads Google, one of the most powerful companies on earth, grew up in a home so small that it didn't even have a telephone? Yes, Sundar Pichai, the quiet and humble leader who became CEO of both Google and Alphabet, did not come from privilege. He did not have access to the latest gadgets, international schools, or wealthy networks. Instead, he grew up in a modest two-room apartment in Chennai, sharing space, food, and dreams with his family. Now pause for a moment and let that sink in. How often do we believe that success belongs only to those who are born in comfort? That global leaders must have started with golden spoons? Sundar's story shatters this illusion. His life shows us that greatness is not reserved for the privileged, is written by those who dare to remain curious, who value education, and who carry humility as their compass. This is not just a corporate success story. This is a modern parable for every student sitting under a dim lamp, for every young worker commuting on a crowded bus, for every parent wondering if sacrifice today will mean something tomorrow. Part 1. Humble beginnings in the bustling city in the heart of southern India. Sundar Pichai was born into a family that was ordinary in wealth, but extraordinary in values. His father, an electrical engineer, earned just enough to provide the basics. His mother worked as a stenographer before becoming a homemaker. Life was not easy, but it was honest. The family lived in a two-room apartment. Imagine that 2 rooms for everyone. Privacy was a luxury they did not know, but discipline and togetherness were values they lived daily. For many years, they didn't even own a telephone. Think about the irony. A boy who would one day transform the way billions of people connect digitally, grew up in a house without the most basic tool of communication. And yet, Sundar never complained. He was not focused on what he didn't have. He was fascinated by what he could learn. His father often spoke about engineering projects at work, and Sundar listened with wide eyes. These conversations were his first lessons in problem solving, in curiosity, in dreaming beyond the walls of his home. There's a saying in psychology: children don't always listen to what you say, but they never fail to imitate what you value. Sundar's parents valued education, integrity, and perseverance. That invisible inheritance became his greatest wealth. In those humble beginnings, something important happened. A seed was planted, not the seed of entitlement, but the seed of curiosity. Sundar may not have had a telephone to call the world, but he already had a mind eager to connect the dots, to see patterns, to imagine possibilities. That seed, nurtured by effort and humility, would one day grow into a tree that reached Silicon Valley. But at this moment, he was just a boy in Chennai, ordinary in appearance, extraordinary in potential. To the first spark, sometimes greatness begins not with a grand opportunity, but with a small, almost invisible moment. For Sundar, that moment came when his father brought home a rotary telephone. It was not an easy purchase. His father had saved 4 months to afford it. To most families, it would have been just another device. But to Sundar, it was a portal into another world. He was fascinated. He didn't just use the phone, he studied it. The way it clicked, the way the numbers turned, the way voices traveled across invisible lines. Soon, people noticed something unusual. Sundar could remember every number ever dialed on that phone. Hundreds of them. Not by writing them down, not by keeping a list, his mind simply held on to the patterns. What does that tell us? That genius is not about memorizing facts. It is about curiosity, about seeing meaning where others see routine. Where most saw a simple phone, Sundar saw possibility. This was his first spark. A small boy in a small home, finding magic in the ordinary. And sometimes that is all it takes, one spark of curiosity to light the fire of a lifetime. 3. The climb through education. But curiosity alone is not enough. It must be trained, tested, and tempered. Sundar knew this, and so he worked tirelessly in school. Education in India has always been fiercely competitive, and for a boy from a modest family, the pressure was immense. There were no shortcuts, no wealthy tutors, no guaranteed opportunities. Only books, long hours, and determination. Step by step, Sundar's hard work carried him forward. He excelled in mathematics and science, eventually earning a place at the prestigious Indian Institute of Technology, Karagar. For many, that would have been the peak. For Sundar, it was just the beginning. At IIT, he stood out not just for his intelligence, but for his humility. Professors noticed how he combined brilliance with simplicity, never showing arrogance, always ready to listen and learn. That humility became his quiet strength. But his journey was far from easy. Coming from a middle-class family, studying abroad seemed almost impossible. The cost of living in America was overwhelming. Sundar once admitted that when he first traveled to the US, he was shocked at how expensive even the basics were. Yet, instead of giving up, he adapted. He lived simply, focused on his studies, and carried the lessons of his Chennai upbringing into every challenge. At Stanford University, he immersed himself in engineering and design. Later, at the Wharton School of Business, he learned how technology and leadership connect. Each step required sacrifice, resilience, and an unshakable belief that knowledge could open doors. Here's the truth. Education does not only fill your mind, it shapes your perspective. It trains you to see beyond obstacles, Sundar's climb through education wasn't just about degrees. It was about building the mindset of a leader who could one day navigate the complexities of a global company. From Chennai's classrooms to Stanford's lecture halls. From humble beginnings to global horizons. Sundar's journey reminds us that education is not just a path to a career, right? Is a path to transformation. For joining Google in 2004, Sundar stepped into Google's headquarters back then. A company still growing, still searching for its place in the digital future. He wasn't the loudest voice in the room, nor the most aggressive. He didn't walk in with swagger. Instead, he walked in with something far more valuable: clarity, curiosity, and the ability to see what others overlooked. His first assignment, a project called the Google Toolbar. To most people, it seemed small, just a simple add-on to help users search more easily. But Sundar treated it with seriousness, with care, with a mindset that even small tools could create big change. The toolbar's success quietly helped millions of people access Google, boosting the company's growth. But his true test came when he suggested a bold idea: creating a new web browser. At that time, Internet Explorer dominated the market. People laughed at the thought of competing with such a giant. Why bother? Why waste resources? Yet, Sundar saw something they didn't. He believed the Internet needed speed, simplicity, and a tool that put the user first. He believed in Chrome before the world did. It wasn't easy. Building Chrome meant facing skepticism, budget battles, and technical challenges. But Sundar pushed forward with quiet persistence. And in 2008, Google Chrome was born. Within years, it became the most widely used browser in the world. This was Sundar's way. Not flashy, not loud, but deeply impactful. He didn't chase attention, he chased solutions. And in doing so, he proved that leadership is not about being the noisiest in the room, but about seeing the road ahead when others are blinded by the present. 5. The rise to leadership. As the years passed, Sundar continued to rise. His calm approach, his ability to unite teams, and his focus on innovation made him stand out. While others fought for recognition, Sundar built trust. While others sought power, he sought progress. In 2015, something remarkable happened. Larry Page and Sergey Brin, the co-founders of Google, announced that Sundar Pichai would become CEO of Google. Later, he would also take on the role of CEO for Alphabet, Google's parent company. Think about this. A boy who grew up in a house without a telephone was now leading the company that would put smartphones into the hands of billions. A child of Chennai was now shaping the digital future of the planet. And yet, those who knew him best often spoke about one quality above all: his humility. Despite his enormous success, Sundar remained approachable, soft-spoken, and grounded. His colleagues described him as a leader who listened more than he spoke. Someone who lifted others instead of pushing them aside. From the factory floor of his father's workplace to the glass towers of Silicon Valley, Sundar's story was not just about ambition, it was about integrity. He proved that you can rise to the highest levels without losing your kindness. That humility is not a weakness, but a form of power the world desperately needs. 6. The philosophy plus expert perspective. When we look at Sundar Pichai's story, it feels almost cinematic. A boy from a modest home in Chennai rises to lead Google. But if you pause and think carefully, there's something deeper here. His journey is not about luck. It's about perspective. Psychologists often speak about the growth mindset, the belief that intelligence and ability are not fixed, but can be developed through effort and learning. Sundar embodied this idea long before it became popular in books and lectures. He didn't let his humble beginnings limit him. Instead, he turned them into strengths. Growing up without a phone gave him appreciation for technology. Studying in crowded classrooms taught him patience and focus. Struggling with costs in America made him resilient and resourceful. Every limitation became a lesson. And then there's humility. In leadership studies, experts say the most effective leaders are often the quiet ones. They don't dominate conversations. They don't chase the spotlight. Instead, they listen, they learn, and they create space for others to shine. Sundar's colleagues often mention his empathy, his calm presence, his ability to unite people across cultures. Think about that for a moment. The man guiding one of the most innovative companies in the world doesn't rule with arrogance. He leads with humility. That combination, knowledge and humility, is rare. But when it comes together, it creates something unstoppable. This is the philosophy hidden in his life. True success is not just about climbing to the top. It's about the way you climb quietly, steadily, and without losing your humanity. So what does Sundar's story teach us? It teaches us that greatness does not require perfect circumstances. You don't need to be born rich, to have the latest gadgets, or to come from a powerful family. What you need is curiosity, effort, and the courage to keep learning even when the road is hard. It teaches us that humility is not weakness. In a world that celebrates loudness, Sundar proved that calm leadership can move mountains. And it teaches us that your starting point is never your final destination. A boy in Chennai without a phone can grow into a man shaping the way billions communicate every single day. If that is possible for him, why not for you? Maybe you're watching this from a crowded hostel room. Maybe you're commuting on a noisy bus after a long shift. Maybe you feel invisible in a world that rewards privilege. Remember Sundar's story. The seed of potential inside you is waiting, water it with effort, protect it with humility. And one day, the world will look up in awe at how far you've grown. Because success isn't about where you start. It's about how far you're willing to go. If this story inspired you, share it with a friend who needs hope. Subscribe to Mindshift Stories for more modern parables that can change the way you see your life. And never forget, knowledge and humility can carry you further than privilege ever will.